We're now into our final session of the day. So we have Nirit, Rom, Ehud, and Steve, and they're going to share some perspectives on the market landscape, types of solutions to manage risks, and current market trends. So over to you, Nirit.
Okay, last session. We're going to hope not to bore you. Thank you for joining us. So Danny just said that there are a lot of friends here in Enrique. So yeah, we're a lot of vendors here. Vendors, can you raise your hand again? Okay, that's not too bad, actually, so good. There are a lot of prospects and customers for us here as well. But I want to say, so you can see our roles and where we come from. When I joined Entro Security 2.5 years ago, there were, no one understood what NHI was. So for me to see all the vendors, one big happy family, under one big umbrella is a good thing. And Lalit, where are you? So I want to join everyone in thanking you. When I spoke to Lalit about a year ago, when was that? And, he was kind of talking about a non-human identity management group, and I don't know if he understood what he's going to do, and I didn't understand, but I said, he's seeing something, I see something here. And so we decided to join forces, and look at us now. And before we start this panel, I really want to thank the audience. So I'm a marketing person, and I spend a lot of my time looking at the audience and what they're doing. And this has been an amazing audience, very engaged, not in their phones 100% of the time, which is good. You're here till the last session. We didn't lose you for coffee, which I was actually a bit concerned. And so this means two things. First of all, we have very serious people here, and you're very interested in the topic. So thank you. And again, so you see our names, and so we know, bands and interesting things and so forth. So I'm going to add to that a little bit and try to keep it light. So what was your first job ever? And then what was your first job in the industry? And I'll give an example from myself. So my first job was at the age of 15. I sold ice cream. On the second day, my brother came. I gave him a free ice cream, and I was fired. And my first job in the industry, I was a copywriter. I was a copywriter and a technical writer. Many years ago.
I guess I'll go next. My first job ever, I think, was cutting lawns, just in the neighborhood, trying to make money. And then my first job in the industry was, I started in help desk, desktop support, crawling around underneath desks, and I just kept putting my hand up for other things and moved my way up to now IAM architecture. So.
Yeah, so this was funny because I was also in the ice cream business. I was selling ice creams. I think since I was 11, I used to buy large packages, and this was my first business essentially that I created. And first job in the industry, I was a vulnerability researcher, so 0 days of the world, and moved to now today the access management space.
Okay, and I'll be outlier here. No ice cream. My first job was actually in a cookie factory. Right, that was like a summer gig that I did. Background from development side and all of that, and really the real first job that is related to this space was many years ago. A company called Business Layers that was later acquired. Izar Shai, first company, if you know the name. And our product was eProvision, and it was called eProvision Day One. And the focus there was about joiners to the organization and automating their rights. And it was all about efficiency. And when I look at the journey that identity space did since that time till today, it's just incredible, right? So that's kind of the perspective that I can bring.
Okay, so let's dive in a little bit. So, we had panels and sessions here, and we already know that there are many roles, responsibilities, people within the organizations that are dealing with NHI. And we heard a lot of answers, and I'm wondering from your perspective and your experience from the people here on this panel, the last and more interesting panel, is who is the guy, gal you're dealing with in your everyday work, on your calls, on your demos? We heard a lot of answers here today, and I'm wondering what you see.
You guys want to take this first?
Sure.
Rom, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, I think it's a great question because I think within this question lies one of the challenges in the identity and specifically in the non-human identity space because, you know, we're speaking to, I think, two types. You can categorize in two main types of personas, and I think one of them is more the cloud architects, the DevOps teams, the engineers, the operations side of the house, where they're trying to understand how they can be more efficient, how they can allow the organization to move forward within the right security guardrails. At the same time, we're speaking to the CISOs, sometimes the IM personas fall more under that side of the house, and they're trying to understand how they're putting in the right security guardrails without hurting the organization's ability to move forward and to be productive. And I think that's interesting because this is actually touching on, I think, one of the main challenges is how do we align those two personas within the organization to create a much more secure, safe, although seamless and productive environment to work in.
Thank you. Ehud?
Okay. So I'll tell you a story a little bit, and that will show a little bit how I think that the market is changing. So 2 years ago, I worked for a company in the cloud security space called Entro Security. And I was talking all the time to cloud security people. And they definitely see NHI and anything that is identity and cloud their responsibility, and they still do. And we had many, many conversations, and their look is actually from the outside in. What is the attack surface? How can attacker come in and take advantage of a series of things like vulnerability and misconfiguration and identity that is sitting there and take advantage of that and do the lateral movement from the outside in. A year ago, I joined Saviynt, and by the way, my name is Ehud. I didn't introduce myself, so that's kind of a flow. A year ago, I joined Saviynt, and Saviynt is about identity management, identity governance, talking to identity people. And a year ago, they basically said, we don't know if we have a role in NHI. Many of them, right? Many of you, maybe. And I think that this is changing, right? We are seeing the inside-out look as well, right? Looking into, am I aware of all of my identities? Not just in the context of an outsider trying to attack and take advantage of a vulnerability, but also overall in terms of maybe an internal person that is making a bad choice, or maybe a machine going rogue, or maybe other aspects that are not necessarily just cloud security, including governance, right? Am I compliant? Can I speak to my auditor and tell them that I have things under control? It's a different perspective. I don't think that they are necessarily competing. I think that they are more complementing. There are two perspectives on this space, and we are talking to both, right? In many, many cases. You'll see that we go to the conversation and you have the CISO, you have the cloud security, maybe security architect, and you have the identity management in the same room, and we are conducting this conversation about the multiple facets of, NHI, right?
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, there's a reason I wanted you guys to go first, and it's because I'm a practitioner, right? I'm not a vendor, so my conversations are going to be different, and I wanted to hear the different perspective. But for me, it's education, right? Most of the people that you talk about in an organization are probably going to have no idea what you mean by an NHI. And if they know something about an NHI, it's going to be like, oh, you're talking about service accounts, the Active Directory ones, right? How do we solve for that? So it's really about getting out there to all of your stakeholders and describing exactly what NHIs are. And earlier we talked a little bit about what is an NHI, and is that important to us, right? And in some ways, I get a little tired of the battle of the nomenclature, like it's not an NHI, it's a workload, it's this, it's that. I get that. But if we're ever going to get to the point where we're going to assign policies to these things, they have to be very clearly defined. And so I think that that's going to be an important thing. We have to collectively decide what that's going to be. And then if we want to have a shot at creating policies to govern these things throughout our environments, we kind of all have to agree and standardize on it anyway. So again, I think the education side is really important, talking to your stakeholders, making them understand why it's important, and then building a program about over top of it.
So thank you, because that's a great segue for my next question. So, I already told you I joined Entro 2.5 years ago. And when we started, I remember like, NHI, huh? NHI, what? What do you mean? What's NHI? So I'm kind of wondering, how is it different now than it was 2.5 years ago? Also, Steve, maybe you can start because you actually started with this topic. Are you still really educating from the NHI? And if so, who? Or is there a difference between now and 2.5 years ago?
Yeah, I think the visibility is much different, right? There's a lot of tools that most companies have that provide visibility into this, and let's face it, it's a pretty hot topic, right? So your CISO or your security organization is going to know what you're talking about. The education side has helped, but I think there's still a lot of work to do related to that. It's always going to be a challenge, and I think I loved something that Danny said in the last session related to meeting people where they are. And when you're trying to design a program in your business, it's really important to understand the reasons why, right? We talk a lot about this idea of like, what's an NHI? How do we solve for it? What are we going to do for it longer term? But what you don't want to create is the notion of NHI whack-a-mole, right? So now we have the visibility, we have the discoverability, and we see all these NHIs, and we know people are doing poor practices, but we're not solving for the poor practices, right? Because we're not meeting them where we are. We're not asking them the questions, right? Why are you creating it this way? Do you know that there's an easier way? Has anyone talked to you about this? Can we walk you through what an easier way to do this would be, a more secure way? And then enable them to do it, right? So I think it's getting into the guts of those things and really trying to make a difference throughout the organization. Show them the business value, show them that you can make their life easier, and then the rest of it just kind of falls in behind that.
Okay, thank you, Rom.
Yeah, so I think connecting to what you both said, I think what's changed most is urgency. And to your point, 2 years ago, maybe it was people were just unaware. And again, to your point now, the visibility is making people more aware, and they're aware of the problem. And, at Apono, we started from the human side. So many years we've, at this point, supported human identities and the problems that's associated with humans. And we moved to non-human identities as kind of the market has demanded this. And I think the market today is demanding a consolidated solution, a solution that's able to address your organization's identities, not differentiating between the two, even though, they are very different in some of the needs around them. And I think what's driving this urgency even much further is AI agents and adoptions in the organizations, which is now creating even more urgency and a catalyzer to make these, non-human identities, the topic to discuss. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said here. I think that what I'm seeing as well is, again, the role of the identity team in NHI is changing. There were at least many conversations that I had, even a year ago, I heard this statement saying, well, we are focusing on people. We have so many problems with access to people. Let me just finish that. I have a different team that is looking at NHI right now as a side project of the universe. What we are seeing is that that's no longer the case, or less and less cases this is the case. The identity people start to own this space, and I hope that we will see that even more, because fundamentally we think that identity and access, you need to have a control plane that goes across the board and manage the same for people, for machines, for smart machines that are not deterministic, or for regular machines. It have to be looked consistently, and I think that the market is progressing towards that area, which I think makes sense. Right?
Okay, thank you. So I love the props, by the way. I'm a marketing person, and I also brought a prop with me, a crystal ball, which broke. Yeah, major disaster in my suitcase, but okay. So just imagine I have a beautiful crystal ball here. And we talked about how the conversations were 2.5 years ago and today, and we had a full session on agentic AI, and You know, things are changing so fast. So let's say we have a crystal ball, we're looking into the future. We're here in 2 years. What are the conversations going to look like? You want to start?
Yeah.
Crystal ball.
Crystal ball.
You can say whatever you want. We'll check 2 years from now.
So I think 2 years, even a year from now, I think it's just, we're in a world that's changing so quickly that it's just hard to imagine what a year from now will look like. But maybe we'll be in the audience and there'll be like avatars of our here having this panel. It's not really us having the panel. We'll be sitting in the audience next to you guys. But in all seriousness, I think some of the core foundations that we're seeing today that are mandatory in the solutions, and those being the dynamic natures and the automation that's required to be able to support the needs of just how quickly these this environment is changing. I think that foundation, those core principles, I think will stay with us also a year or two from now. And I think that's, I don't know more than that to tell you what will stay, but I think those core principles of a solution will probably still stay.
Thanks. Ehud?
Yeah, so I agree. I cannot predict the future, no chance there. But my wife is always saying that I'm catastrophizing things, so I'll start with a catastrophe. I can guess that at some point in the near future, there will be some sort of an incident that is involving some of the, AI usage, and will actually do a catastrophe, will actually break something. I forgot who said that in one of the earlier sessions, that he's looking for a point of breakage for an organization. I can imagine a situation where things are getting out of control, there is an attack, some critical infrastructure is just falling, like a sci-fi movie. I'm a sci-fi guy, so that's kind of my metaphor. So I'll start with that. I do also think that compliance regulation will start to pick up. They are speaking today in the language of PCI, talking about still user accounts that needs to be reviewed and all of that, and a little bit less about all of the form of NHI out there. I think that will change. I think that we will see more and more of the regulation catching up and driving even broader adoption of NHI as part of a holistic IAM overall. And again, the trend of just more and more NHIs, more and more types of NHIs. AI is an NHI, is it something we want to call it differently, but it will continue to evolve and will have its own challenges out there that will require special attention as well. So these are my 3 things.
Okay, Steve.
Okay, I'll be the guy. I don't think a lot's going to change from the problem perspective, and here's why, right? The tools will change, they'll improve, and we'll make all kinds of great iterations for that. The reason why I don't think we're going to get super far is because no one wants to tackle the tech debt problem, right? And Michael Silva scares me. You should scare everybody in the room because he showed you a lot of really cool stuff right there. That's from tech debt, right? And if we don't take the time, the investment to do that properly, to clean those things up, whether it's Active Directory or your LDAP environment or any of these other things, we're going to be trying to solve the exact same problems 2 years from now. The tools will get better in terms of providing visibility, but the heavy lifting and effort that has to go into making the environment solid, secure, reasonable data for you to consume, swampy data in, swampy data out type notion, that takes a lot of time, effort, and I'm just not seeing that a lot of companies are willing to put that in. They'll buy the tool, but they won't invest in the people to do the tech debt remediation.
Yeah, let me jump in and just ask you a follow-up question. Do you see, again, regulation driving some of that to make it, you have to be doing that? Like, Sabinox, if you want to be a public company, you have to have these controls. If you want to process credit cards, you have to have that. My view is that we are waiting for that, force that will just say, you have to do it, right? It's not an option. It's not like, can I adopt more AI? Right? Yeah, you can adopt more AI if you're doing that responsibly, and here is how the definition of responsibly look like, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's this notion of we can create these let's say we create a standard and we say we have to apply by that standard. It's just like creating a gate and then saying people, I want you to go through the gate, but it's easier for them to go around the gate. They'll just go around the gate, right? So we can say that we do it, we can check the box, we did the audit, we saw the thing, but if we don't really do the hard work to solve the problem, which is what nobody wants to do, we're just going to keep hitting the same things. It's almost like, and I access reviews are, obviously a touchy subject with everyone, but it's the rubber stamping of everything, right? If you can, there's an easy way to say we're remediated on something, but it's not the right way, you're just going to keep coming back to it. Fair.
Okay, guys, I want to thank you, Steve, Rom, Ehud, and I think there's still a lot of questions and answers that we can give, and like we said, there are a lot of vendors here, and all are going to stand together in Lalitza Pavilion, and we're all here to continue the discussions. So thank you, and thank you, audience, again.
Thank you.